welcome back to my channel. I am eca.fairy and in today's video I am sharing with you my advice when visiting Rome, so you can make the most out of your trip. Making sure that I include the tickets that you will need, good places where to eat that I didn't find online, and some honorable mentions that we enjoyed when visiting. I visited Rome at the end of February this year. I'm going to start with the attractions that needed or didn't need an online ticket booked beforehand. I'm going to start with the Vatican Museum and the process of entering it, because this was a bit confusing for us at the beginning. First thing that you have to keep in mind is that you definitely need to book an online ticket before your visit. Book it as early as you can, and also make sure that you choose the earliest time slot that you can, because you can stay in the museum for as long as you want. Nobody is going to tell you to leave, which means that by noon or late noon, more and more visitors are accumulating inside the museum, so you will have less space to walk around because the people will be more and more. We visited at 10 o'clock, that was when our visit started, and it was a really good time slot. Maybe even try to do 9 o'clock if you can, but be aware that you need to be there 30 minutes beforehand. So the way this works is that you will actually queue up on the street to enter the Vatican Museum, and that is how you enter inside the walls of the Vatican. So we were actually expecting to walk inside the Vatican and then from there to kind of make our way towards the museum entrance and to be admitted and so on, but no, the museum has a separate entrance on its own. This is kind of how it looks. You can only enter at the time that you are given on your ticket, but you have to make it there 30 minutes before. Make sure that you take enough time, because traffic can be tricky no matter the hour that you're choosing. But don't worry, these queues, they all enter at once. So for example, if your ticket says 10 o'clock, you will start queuing at about 9:30, let's say. That's when your queue will start forming. And when 10 o'clock approaches, the whole queue for 10 o'clock enters at once. So you will not be left out, even though the queue seems really long. And I'm really insisting on buying the tickets for the Vatican beforehand, because the queue without the tickets is longer than this one. You are actually not guaranteed that you will make it inside the museum. For visiting Basilica di San Pietro, you don't need a ticket. It has a separate entrance. We walked around the walls of the Vatican for about 15 minutes. You will see the really iconic columns of the square. It has the basilica inside. You will have to queue up for a security check that is similar to the one at the airport. And by the way, I also forgot to mention that inside the Vatican Museum you also have a similar security check. After you pass the security check, there will be a really big queue for entering the basilica, and a really huge queue, like more than 100 people entered at one time, because the basilica is really huge. They let in a lot of people at once, and this is for the non-ticket holders. So we didn't have a ticket, and I personally don't think you need one. The only way to get a ticket for the basilica is if you actually book a guided tour of it. So we looked at everything, we saw the Pieta and the procedure for seeing the Pieta. Now, I mentioned this in my last video about Rome. You might remember Rome for art lovers. There is also a museum downstairs, and you can also go upstairs and climb into the tower, I think. For a panoramic view of Rome, I think you need to pay for that, like 5 euros, 2 euros. I'm not sure. We didn't, because we didn't have the time. But if that's something that you want to do, I think the view is pretty great from what I've seen. However, I'm going to include a panoramic view of Rome that we did get to see later in this video. And I also said that I was going to mention whether I think you need a guide or not, and how I've noticed that if getting a guide actually makes more of your experience or less. So for the Vatican, and I've noticed that getting a guide really takes a lot out of the experience. Fortunately, we didn't, but we did see groups with a guide around us, and obviously because they have a designed time slot of, I think, like 3 hours or so, I think that's how long a guided tour takes through the Vatican, they are going to be hurrying you through some of the rooms. And the reason that I'm saying this is because, for example, we took like almost 4 hours to visit without the Sistine Chapel. I'm placing this a bit separately, so just visiting before reaching the Sistine Chapel took about 3 hours or so. And we were kind of moving in the same pace that the groups, like the guided groups were moving. However, we actually got to look at every single thing that we were interested in. Going with a guide, the reason that I'm saying it takes out of the experience is that you are not going to be looking at what you are interested in, and you are not going to be allowed to actually take a few minutes looking at this, at that, and make the visit at your own pace. This guide is going to be stopping you at specific artworks, just a few of them, and telling you facts about those things. And while that is great, really informative, really useful, you will be missing out on way more than they are showing you. Because, for example, as I told you in my last video on Rome, in the Vatican you have access to smaller rooms that are going to be on the left or on the right of the main walkway, like the main hallways that you are walking through. And these rooms are actually home to immensely important artworks by painters such as Van Gogh or Salvador Dali or Picasso. So you are going to be missing this because the guide is going to be only showing you the main things, the main objectives, and really hurrying you through everything. I've seen that people aren't really able to just take in the beauty of it because they have to keep following the group, and because there are so many people inside the hallways, following your group is going to take out most of your attention, and you might not actually be able to look at the wonders that are around you. And I've actually noticed the people with the guided groups just having to follow the group always find the guide, you know. I want to tell you about the Colosseum. This is the only place that I really think you need a guide for, and I'm going to explain to you why. So we had booked a ticket for the Colosseum, the Palatine Hill, and the Roman Forum. So these came as like a 3-pack thingy inside one ticket, and this was guided for the purpose that the only way to go down inside the Colosseum on the platform that they basically used to fight on is to get the guided tour. But I do really think that you need a guide for the Colosseum and for the Palatine Hill and Roman Forum, and that is because information about them, like information that is on display, is pretty sparse compared to, for example, in the Vatican. There are a lot of boards with a lot of information that you can actually read about the rooms. However, in the Colosseum you wouldn't find so much information on display, so you're basically just looking at it, and if you're not familiar with its history, you don't exactly know like why is this so relevant, right? We were able, as I was saying, to walk on the platform, but getting a guided tour here at the Colosseum in itself was a very impressive experience because the information that the guide was offering us, and I really think that we were lucky to get a guide that also knew really interesting things and knew how to present them. She didn't sound like a Wikipedia page. Was really important because it helped us understand even more how important the Colosseum is, and all these historical sites, how impressive they actually are for standing there for so long. Because, for example, the Colosseum was finished in the year 80, which I didn't know personally, and a lot of the things that she told us really changed our perspective and showed us why it was so important. Like, yeah, I'm actually walking on Roman stone that they placed almost 2000 years ago. That was wow to us. And she also had really fun facts about the places, and it was really insightful, really interesting. I've noticed the people that didn't have a guide would just, you know, kind of walk there. Yes, the monument is really impressive, the places look really cool, but other than that, like, you take a few pictures but you don't exactly know what you're photographing. And you might say that yes, you can read about them later, like I told you to do about the paintings, but I think that here you don't really absorb so much as you would do with a painting that fascinates you, because some of them are just ruins, and you might not actually be impressed if you don't know, like, yeah, this is the ruin, that this is where Julius Caesar was murdered, like right here, you know. You might see that song and be like, okay, whatever, and you will not remember about it when you read about it later, if that makes sense. However, as I was saying, this is my experience, my advice. In the day that we visited the Vatican, we also had the latest ticket that we could get for Castel Sant'Angelo, which is a 15-minute walk, let's say, from St. Peter's Basilica. And even though we had the latest time slot booked, Apparently we didn't need to book it so late because we made it in time, but if you want to take more time to eat in between these, to sit down, take a break, that's fine, because you will have plenty of time to visit Castel Sant'Angelo. I think like we really took our time inside, and we visited for a bit more than an hour, I would say. However, here is like a sort of medieval castle. There isn't so much visual information like in a museum or in the Vatican Museum, for example, but there are really cool things inside. And on the rooftop, you should really climb up to the rooftop. The stairs aren't really difficult because you can see a really beautiful panoramic view of Rome. I do really insist on you getting a ticket for Castel Sant'Angelo, because when we arrived there was a really long line of non-ticket holders and they had to wait a long time to just queue up, and we just showed our tickets and they let us in, and I think it was even a bit earlier than our time slot, so we basically got more time inside. It's also home to really beautiful artifacts, artworks and so on, and the view was really impressive. We also had booked tickets for the Pantheon, and I advise you to book the tickets. We booked them for, I think it was the 6 p.m. time slot, and it closed at 6:30 p.m. and we had to leave. However, 30 minutes, I think also arrived a bit earlier, but 30 minutes was plenty of time to visit it, because it's like a really huge room and you walk around, because it's a round room, obviously, the Pantheon, and you walk around and there's a lot of information displayed. We also had an audiobook that came with the tickets that we have. But definitely book the tickets, because the queue of people that didn't have tickets was quite long. I even think that some of them didn't manage to enter. Near the Pantheon we also ate at the best restaurant from the whole trip, but I'm going to tell you about it a bit later when we reach the restaurant recommendation part. The last museum that we visited that I definitely think you need tickets for, bought in advance, is Galleria Borghese. I've talked about it extensively in my last video on Rome. If you haven't watched it, definitely do. However, even if you're not an art lover, Galleria Borghese is really special. I do advise you to make time and see it. However, if you can and if you resonate with this kind of advice, do not get a guided tour for these guys because it's really not necessary. The gallery is really stunning on its own. I think you can get audio guides of it. I'm not sure. There are also printed guides of it. However, I'm glad, however, I regret having a guided tour of it, because it kind of took out of the experience of me exploring the place. I really love to explore, to take my time to look at certain artworks that get my attention, to look for my favorite artists, and getting a guided tour will not allow you to do that. They will choose the artworks that they are talking about and just rush you through the other rooms and from the other paintings, and I personally had to literally step out of the group and just wander on my own a little in the specific room to be able to see other things, because I noticed that the tendency of guides is to just fixate on one really important thing in the room. For example, our guide only talked about one or maximum two things in the room, and she didn't even point to the other ones. We weren't even able to see them. Like, for example, I was, because I just looked at them like on my own, but most people that followed the group, they weren't even able to look at the other artworks, because she just rushed them to keep going to the next thing, that she was going to talk about for 5 minutes or even more. I know this is a personal rant, but bear with me because I do have a point. If you are at least a bit knowledgeable about art, you wouldn't have needed that guided tour. She literally told us things that we could see, commented on very visible aspects, and made almost no useful remarks about anything. And I honestly just hope that this was our bad experience with this specific guide, and maybe other guided tours are more insightful. But my point still stands that if you want to be able to visit at your own pace and just look at everything that you want to see, a guided tour is just useless at that point. And I've noticed other guided groups walking around us really rushed as well. There were even a few groups that when they entered with their respective guides, the guides said said, oh my god, this room is so crowded, let's just go to the other one, we're going to skip this one. And I was speechless because this happened a few times, and I was speechless because what do you even mean you're going to just make them skip that room just because it's too crowded and you don't have the patience to wait for the other people to move from the one painting that you are going to talk about in that specific room. That's just sad in my opinion. It was really bad. Next up, I'm going to be tackling the places that we didn't have pre-booked ticket for, and I'm not sure if it's necessary or not, but if you're visiting in this time, early February, late February, you aren't going to need for these places because the entry is pretty fluid. Unfortunately, not a lot of people have these on their visiting list, so you are going to be able to enter pretty quickly. Didn't encounter a queue in any of the following places. However, before that, so I don't forget, I wanna address the Fontana di Trevi issue because for now there is no entry fee. I've seen this and I actually got like panicked because I've seen this on TikTok. Oh my god, they introduced a fee for Fontana di Trevi. Right now, as I'm speaking, the fee is not yet in place. I don't know when it's going to be introduced, but for now, there isn't a fee, and I want to explain how the queuing system for Fontana di Trevi works. Because the information online was really confusing about it, so as a person who has been there during both queuing and not queuing times, this is exactly how it works. Between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. they put out these cords that you queue around. So you just queue inside these like cords, right? And you have to wait, and they let down to climb down the stairs near the fountain a specific amount of people so it doesn't get too crowded. After 9 p.m. they just lift the cords out. For this time of the year, I really think it's so unnecessary to go at Fontana di Trevi at 5 a.m. in the morning. It really is, in my opinion, because we were able to see it just fine at around 8:30. Not a lot of people were there, and after 9 the cords are lifted. However many people want to go down, they are able to. We were really lucky in this sense because even though there were a lot of people, way more than there were allowed during the cord time, during the queuing time, the wait time was 0 basically, whereas with the queue you really have to wait there for a while. The queue doesn't move as fast as in the other places that I was telling you about, so do take that into consideration. However, as I was telling you, after 9 p.m. we had the best experience at the Fontana, in my opinion. We were able to go down, take pictures, and nobody was like climbing us, nobody was pushing us. We really had space to take pictures and nobody disturbed them. There is nobody appearing in any of our pictures. However, yes, if you want a professional photo shoot, if you want to take really wide pictures with you and the fountain and nobody in the picture, yes, you will need to wake up at ungodly hours and go there. But the people are really civilized, they were really okay, nobody. And the only thing, we wanted to also see it in the morning. However, on the specific day that we went, even though there were very few people and it was almost 9 o'clock by that time, Fontana was closed for the whole day because there was a football match and they wanted to prevent any sort of vandalism on really important monuments. So the access was forbidden for everybody for the whole day, and there was a lot of police stationed there, and they explained this to us. But I do want to mention that it is on your own responsibility if you choose to go after 12, because from then until like 8 p.m. or something, it is truly full. There is way too many people there. Not very far from Fontana di Trevi, there is also Chiesa Sant'Ignazio de Loyola, which is the really viral church with the amazing ceiling that you can take pictures in the mirror. What you need to know, there is going to be a queue inside the church to get to the mirror. We went there after 9 p.m. I think, and it was a really good choice because before that the queue is apparently bigger. Later in the evening you should be able to make it to the mirror in about 20 minutes or so. That is, I think, how much we waited because people take their time. You will need to insert, I think, €1, and the mirror and the ceiling will light up, and you have plenty of time to take pictures, take videos with just €1. You can reinsert if you want, again, for the things to light up. In these following museums, we didn't need the ticket, we just walked in, there was basically no queue, and not so many people inside. Obviously, I don't speak for all the times of the year. In the summer it's probably way more crowded, so you might want to still book tickets in advance. However, the reason that we didn't have tickets booked for this time, when you book tickets you will see that you have to also choose a time slot, and it's really stressful to basically have your whole day booked, because you just need to go from one place to the other at a specific hour, and you can't stop on the way, you can't take your time if you see something more interested. So what we had in our trip was tickets booked for the main attractions, and then for the rest of them we were able to kind of make our way and see everything at our own pace. And these are Galleria Doria Pamphili, Museo Boncompagni Ludovisi, Galleria Nazionale d'Arte Moderna. And this one was €2 per student, I think, the cheapest entrance ever. There was no queue. The Capitolini museums, some places that you can actually visit for free that are really beautiful and really worth your time. Piazza Navona, Piazza del Popolo. We saw Piazza del Popolo during both daytime and nighttime, and during daytime it's a really animated place. Street singers, street performers, street artists, just a really lively atmosphere. And you might have seen this on TikTok when searching for Rome attractions. The Knights of Malta keyhole. This is literally a door that you look through a keyhole and you see that really beautiful view, and you will encounter a small queue for this. We arrived pretty early in the morning, so I think that's why the queue was really small. The line moves pretty fast because, you know, you just look through it. Like, for how long can you look through a keyhole, you know? Also, when you are in Piazza del Popolo, make sure to enter Basilica San Maria del Popolo. You enter through the gates of the piazza, going to be on your left. They have 2 Caravaggio paintings there. I talked about it in my last video. These 2 were recently brought back into this church. We were told this by one of the guides that we had. And another really popular thing on TikTok that I've seen was Tempio de Esculapio, which is this really pretty temple, really beautiful lake, cute ducks, and you can actually see this. So I would advise you to go, for example, if you want to visit Galleria Borghese, go there, then walk through the Borghese Gardens. That is for free. If you don't want to visit the gallery, don't have the time, don't have the money, or so on, a walk through the gardens is free, the entrance is free, and you can walk through them, and on the opposite end you're going to find the temple. And after you finish seeing the temple, it's literally a 2-minute walk until the Museum of Modern Arts that I was telling you about before. So they're really like in the same area, I would say. We were really lucky to find such good places to eat, and I didn't see them online because I tried to look like right before arriving where to eat, and I saw some places, but of course we didn't have the time to go from a museum to that specific place, so we just found other places to eat. And for example, near Museo Boncompagni Ludovisi we found our favorite place to eat, which is Pinzere. They have this sort of pizza like thingy, but it's smaller, everything is crunchier, and the toppings and like the ingredients are really uniquely combined, so not your average pizza. This was so tasty, so good, and the people working there are so funny and friendly and just amazing. This was so great. Then you're going to be encountering this sort of shop pretty much all around the center. Like, we've seen a few locations while walking down the streets. These are Limone or something, and if you see this, definitely go inside. I cannot speak for ice cream places because we've only been to this one. The ice cream was really great. If you see this, this is near Piazza del Popolo. Definitely go there if you are craving some ice cream. It was really good. I got the Amarena one. Anyways, as I was saying about Limone, I got this lemon that was filled with lemon sorbet and lemon ginger sorbet. If you are in Piazza del Popolo, I suggest, if you're hungry, to eat at Canova, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. That's where we ate. The food was really good. The restaurant that had the best pasta that we've tasted in Rome was Hostaria Pantheon. This is right near the Pantheon, and definitely get the carbonara. And they also had this dessert. It was, I don't remember its name, something with cake. It was a chocolatey almond flakes cake, and it was so good, so soft, just the best dessert that we've had besides the sorbet. Then another great place for pasta, this was the place where we really enjoyed the pasta arrabbiata, was this one. You could actually tell that the pasta sauce was homemade because it was so tasty. We didn't do much shopping, but the shopping that we did that I really enjoyed was at this shop called Mieki. It was near the Pantheon, like on a street that walks right to the back of the Pantheon, and it has the cutest things, this lemon themed collection. The dolls are really pretty. Another thing that I'm really advising you to do, go see the Colosseum both day and night, even if you're not going to go inside. And same goes for Fontana di Trevi. The view at night and during the day, totally different experiences. Definitely go see both of them. Another piece of advice that I would have really needed personally is look online if you can for the period that you're visiting in for temporary exhibitions in certain places, because you might actually be lucky, like I was for example with Munch, but with other exhibitions. I told you about Munch in my other video on Rome. Make sure to stay up to date with these things because you might be actually catching something really cool. Most places that I listed earlier offer a cloakroom, so if you have a lot of things with you, or if your bag is really big, if you're carrying a lot of stuff, you will be able to leave your backpack there, to leave your coats and so on. However, the only place I think that didn't offer a cloakroom was Galleria Doria Pamphili. We had to carry our bags and we had just arrived in Rome. We didn't even get to check in. We started visiting and the bags were so heavy and we just had to like walk through the whole thing with them on our backs. These have been my tips and my experience with Rome. Make sure to let us know down in the comment section if you have other pieces of advice for all of us, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. Thank you so much for watching and have fun visiting Rome. Bye!